Imagine walking into a room where every single person holds a remote control connected directly to your nervous system. If someone smiles, they press a button that makes you feel worthy, validated, and relieved. But if someone frowns, whispers, or ignores you, they press a button that floods your chest with panic, humiliation, and instant self-doubt. Now, look at your daily life. Is that not precisely how you live? Every time a casual remark from a coworker keeps you awake at 2 in the morning. Every time you censor your authentic voice just to avoid an awkward silence. And every time you measure your value by the unpredictable moods of unstable people, you hand over that remote control. You become a voluntary puppet, dancing on strings pulled by strangers who do not even care about your existence. We live in an era of constant social surveillance. You walk on invisible eggshells, curating a sanitized version of yourself just to survive the court of public opinion. But living for external validation is not merely stressful. It is a slow, quiet psychological suicide. When your peace depends on the crowd, you are not free. You are a hostage in a prison, where you built the bars and locked the door from the inside. 2,000 years ago, in the violent heart of imperial Rome, a man walked through the streets with a crippled leg and torn clothes. His name was Epictetus. He was born into physical slavery. He owned almost nothing. He was beaten, exiled, and surrounded by masters who held absolute legal power over his body. Yet, Epictetus was freer than the emperors who ruled the world. He discovered an invincible mental fortress, a sanctuary so deep that no insult, no physical pain, and no human judgment could ever pierce it. Epictetus realized a truth that modern psychology is only beginning to understand. People cannot break you. Only your own untrained opinions about people can break you. This is not superficial motivation. This is a surgical deconstruction of human approval. Over the next minutes, we will walk through the core framework of Epictetan Stoicism to dismantle social anxiety and build a mind that is truly untouchable. Epictetus begins his masterwork, the Enchiridion, not with abstract philosophy, but with a cold, uncompromising rule. Some things are in our control, and others not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, property, reputation, command, and in one word, whatever are not our own actions. Look closely at where Epictetus places the word reputation. He does not say reputation is partially within your control. He does not say that if you are exceptionally kind or charismatic, you can secure an 80% guarantee of being liked. He places reputation entirely, irrevocably, outside your control. Consider the profound psychological liberation within this distinction. You can dedicate your entire life to being honorable, compassionate, and competent. You can speak with perfect diplomacy, yet someone will still misinterpret your intentions. Someone will project their unresolved trauma onto your tone of voice. Someone will envy your discipline and brand it as arrogance. Someone will despise you simply because your presence exposes their lack of character. When you demand that others view you favorably, you are demanding the impossible. You are asking irrational people to act rationally and insecure people to see clearly. Epictetus compared those who chase reputation to an actor who walks onto the stage shivering in terror. When a singer is about to perform, his voice is fine, his instrument is tuned, yet he walks onto the stage with trembling hands. Why? Because he knows how to sing, but he does not know what the audience will do. He wants applause, and that is outside his control. Whenever you enter a meeting, a social gathering, or post something online with anxiety in your chest, you are that trembling performer. You have forgotten your craft, and you have fixated on the applause. Draw a strict, unyielding boundary in your mind today. Divide the universe into two distinct realms, your internal kingdom and the external wilderness. Your thoughts, your integrity, and your response to events belong to your kingdom. The opinions, criticisms, and applause of other human beings belong to the wilderness. Spend your energy where you possess sovereign rule. Treat the rest like the weather. Observe the rain, prepare your coat, but never waste a single second begging the clouds to change their mind. How do you react when someone attacks your character, makes a snide remark, or talks behind your back? For most people, the reaction is instantaneous. Adrenaline spikes, the jaw tightens, and the mind races to defend itself. You replay the scene 20 times in your head, torturing yourself with what you should have said. Now, listen to how Epictetus instructed his students to respond when someone insulted them. If you learn that someone is speaking ill of you, do not make excuses or defend yourself. Instead, answer, "He must have been ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone." Think about the devastating psychological power behind this mindset. Why does an insult hurt? An insult only wounds you if it exposes an insecurity you have failed to face, or if you desperately need the critic to validate your worth. When you possess radical self-honesty, when you already know your own flaws and limitations, an external attack has no surface area to latch onto. If someone says you are foolish and they are correct, why get angry? They have simply stated an objective fact that you must now correct. If someone says you are foolish and they are wrong, why get angry? They have simply revealed their own lack of vision. In neither scenario is anger a rational response. Epictetus gave another striking analogy. Stand by a rock and insult it. What have you accomplished? If someone responds to an insult like a rock, what has the abuser gained with his slander? Think about a river crashing against a massive granite boulder. The water foams, roars, and throws itself violently against the stone. Does the boulder shatter? Does it scream? Or try to convince the water to flow gently? The boulder simply remains what it is. The water crashes, exhausts its energy, and flows downstream into irrelevance. When you argue or explain yourself frantically to people who have chosen to misunderstand you, you give the critic everything they wanted. You prove that they hold power over your inner peace. When you remain silent, you leave the poison entirely in the hands of the person who poured it. Be the deep water, not the fragile surface. One of the most dangerous traps of modern life is the obsession with looking competent at all times. We are terrified of being seen as beginners. We fear the awkwardness of trying, failing, and looking ridiculous in front of our peers. Epictetus identified this vanity as the ultimate barrier to growth. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid in regard to outward things. Do not wish to be thought to know anything, and even if you appear to be somebody to others, distrust yourself. Think of how many dreams and radical life transformations have died before they even began, not because of a lack of talent, but because of the paralyzing fear of looking foolish during the process. Think of the person who stays trapped in a soul-crushing job because they cannot bear the thought of friends seeing them start over at the bottom. Think of the person who never creates, never writes, and never speaks up because they dread the smirks of mediocre minds who haven't attempted anything original in years. Psychologists call this the spotlight effect, the cognitive illusion that causes you to believe everyone is constantly watching, analyzing, and judging your every move. The reality is liberatingly cold. Nobody is paying attention. Everyone else is far too consumed with their own private panic, their own insecurities, and their own desire for approval to spend more than 3 seconds thinking about you. Epictetus demands that you embrace the dignity of the fool. Let them think you are strange because you wake up early to train your mind. Let them think you are boring because you refuse to engage in petty gossip. Let them mock your awkward first steps. Mediocre minds will always attack anyone who dares to escape the gravity of average living. Their laughter is not evidence of your failure. It is evidence of their discomfort. To be truly free, you must grant yourself permission to look like a fool in the eyes of a world that has lost its direction. When you find yourself craving the approval of others, pause and perform an objective autopsy on the crowd you are trying to impress. Epictetus urged his disciples to look closely at their judges. Why do you seek the praise of people who do not even understand themselves? Do you want to be praised by a person who despises his own existence? Look around at society with completely sober eyes. The average person is governed by unchecked emotional impulses, buried resentments, financial anxiety, and digital distraction. They change their moral opinions depending on whoever is in the room. They praise what is trendy today and condemn it tomorrow. Why would you take the crown of your self-worth and place it at the feet of people whose advice you would never trust in real life? If a blind man gave you a map of a dark forest, would you follow it? Of course not. Yet, when you construct your identity based on public opinion, you are following the emotional directions of people who are hopelessly lost in their own lives. Marcus Aurelius, who studied Epictetus deeply, wrote, "I have often wondered how it comes that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others." Reflect on that contradiction. You know your own intentions. You know your silent battles and how hard you are trying behind closed doors. Yet, the moment a stranger offers a shallow criticism, you instantly discard your internal truth and accept their judgment as reality. Stop performing for an audience that isn't even watching the play. The crowd does not love you when they cheer, and they do not hate you when they mock. They are merely projecting their own internal chaos onto you. Let the applause pass by like dry leaves in the wind, and let their opinions dissolve into empty air. One of the most foundational principles of Stoic philosophy is that external events carry zero emotional charge on their own. Epictetus stated this with absolute precision. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view which they take of them. When therefore we are hindered or disturbed or grieved, let us never attribute it to others but to ourselves, that is, to our own judgments. Consider the pure physics of an insult. When someone speaks a harsh word to you, what has physically happened? Air left their lungs, vibrated their vocal cords, traveled through the room and struck your eardrum. Up to this point, there is no anger. There is no humiliation. There is only sound and biology. The emotional wound occurs entirely in the next fraction of a second, the moment your conscious mind applies an interpretation. I have been attacked. I have been harmed. It is not the sound wave that causes your heart to race. It is the judgment you stamped onto the sound wave. Epictetus taught that while you cannot stop the initial impression from hitting your mind, you possess absolute veto power over your ascent. You have the authority to pause at the doorway of your consciousness and ask, has my character been stolen? No. Has my ability to act with reason been destroyed? No. Has my capacity to choose virtue been compromised? No. Then nothing real has been damaged, except your manufactured ego. No one can make you feel inferior without your active collaboration. You must sign the contract of your own suffering. From this day forward, tear up the contract. Refuse your consent. When an insult arrives, let it meet a wall of absolute psychological stillness. Epictetus taught in open-air courtyards. Today, you carry an amphitheater of millions of voices inside the glass screen in your pocket. You refresh metrics. You analyze how many strangers acknowledged your existence. You read comment sections dripping with anonymous hostility. Social anxiety in the modern world is not a personal defect. It is the predictable biological consequence of using ancient tribal brains to navigate an algorithmically amplified global crowd. Your evolutionary hardware was designed for a tribe of 50 people, where social rejection meant literal death in the wilderness. When someone disapproves of you online today, your ancient brain screams that you are about to be abandoned in the cold. This is where the cold rationality of Epictetus acts as an emergency override switch. Whenever you feel that digital panic, apply these 3 Stoic filters. First, the principle of proximity. Would you invite this person into your home? Would you trust their integrity with your family? If the answer is no, why are you allowing their anonymous text to dictate your stress levels? Second, the transience of the spectacle. Everything you see online is a passing mirage. The viral outrage of this morning is completely forgotten by next week. Building your self-worth on internet sentiment is like building a house on shifting sand. Third, the internal scorecard. The world runs on external numbers, views, titles, and applause. The Stoic runs on internal metrics. Did I act with courage today? Was I honest? Did I master my reactions? If you can answer yes to your internal scorecard, the noise of the outside world becomes completely irrelevant. You do not need to silence the crowd. You cannot muzzle every critic. You simply need to build a mental sanctuary so strong that the noise outside can never penetrate the silence within. Philosophy without daily practice is just empty conversation. Epictetus viewed the human mind like an athlete views the body. It requires rigorous daily conditioning. Here are 3 specific protocols to permanently dissolve your need for validation. 1. Morning pre-meditation. Before you touch your phone and before you leave your home, sit in silence and prepare your mind. Today, I will encounter meddlesome people, ungrateful people, arrogant and dishonest people. They act this way because they cannot distinguish good from evil, but none of them can force me into ugliness. For I know who I am. When you anticipate human irrationality, you are never surprised by it. When someone is rude, you do not panic. You simply open your mental umbrella and keep walking. 2. The practice of absolute secrecy. Society trains you to broadcast every victory. Epictetus challenges you to do the opposite. Practice doing good in complete obscurity. Perform an act of genuine kindness and tell nobody. Complete an intense workout without posting evidence. Work on a skill for 6 months in silence. When you execute excellence without demanding the reward of public applause, you break the addiction to validation. 3. The evening review. At the end of the day, before you close your eyes, examine your actions with clear, calm honesty. Where did I compromise my values? Did I change my behavior just to impress someone? Did I give away the keys to my mind? Do not judge yourself with shame. Simply review the evidence, reinforce the boundaries for tomorrow, and forgive yourself. Mastery is not perfection. It is the daily willingness to recalibrate your mind. 2,000 years after Epictetus walked the earth, the human condition remains the same. Our technology is faster, our buildings are taller, but the human heart still trembles before the exact same ghosts: the fear of rejection, the sting of criticism, and the desperate hunger to be liked. Look at your life from this moment forward with absolute clarity. You have a finite number of heartbeats left, a fixed, unnegotiable number of breaths before your story ends. Are you truly prepared to spend those irreplaceable minutes managing the fragile opinions of people who will forget your name hours after you are gone? Are you willing to sacrifice your peace, your authenticity, and your inner power just to receive a polite nod of approval from a confused crowd? Epictetus walked out of chains into history because he understood that no one can enslave a mind that refuses to be bought. You do not need to win every argument. You do not need to be understood by everyone. You only need to master the space between stimulus and response. Draw the line today. Reclaim the remote control to your life. Neutralize every attack with calm humility. Step out of the performance and claim the only freedom that has ever truly mattered: the quiet, unshakable, and invincible peace of an untouchable mind.